Joining us now on the phone is Ron Peavy. He was on lockdown on the base. Thank you for joining us. I understand that you are not a member of the military. Where were you on base, and when did you realize something was wrong?
Only when I was going to actually leave out of the north gate. I was making a delivery. I'm a truck driver. We haul electronics and things like that. I was delivering a copier to one of the buildings. I'd been there before numerous times over 30 years. When I was done, on my own, I went to leave out of the north side, heading back to Atlanta. I got to the gate. I was the first truck at that gate, and they were out there. It looked different. They had it was partially blocked. The right lane, the one I was in, was blocked, and the one to the left had a line of cars. It's active out there. They were turning them all around. Nobody knew what was going on. There was for the next half hour. I don't think anybody, aside from those who had to know, knew, because we certainly didn't. They wouldn't let me go out. And in an 18-wheeler, I really don't have much choice but to go straight. They finally stopped the line of cars that they were turning around, and they all looked perplexed as well. When they finally were making me turn around, which I couldn't do with the cars in the way, I got out. That agitated them. Then I got out of my vehicle. They kind of yelled at me to get back in, asked me, "Don't I understand?" I said, "I don't understand anything. What do you want me to do?" They finally turned me around, but midway, I'm like, "Where am I going?" They said, "You can't leave. Go find somewhere to park until you can leave." So just I went over to where the Army Exchange, the store, the mall, went over there, and it was a ghost town. I stopped a few times. The whole base went quiet. All you can hear was the emergency vehicles whizzing by in every direction. There had to be 30 of them, if not more. But all the activity in the whole base shut down.
So
you didn't see anybody anywhere.
We're looking, Ron, at some of the video you shot and the picture that you posted on Facebook. So for half an hour, you're seeing emergency vehicles, one after the other, going. You go to the PX, which would normally be teeming at midday. You say it's a ghost town. What's going through your mind?
I literally, in all honesty, I thought us and either Russia or China were engaged in some sort of nuclear war. That was I was out there in 9/11. I was in downtown Columbia when 9/11 happened. It looked like 9/11. I got the same feeling. But it was when I went over to the exchange. I go to walk in. I was thinking, okay, well, it's lunchtime. I don't know what's going on. I called everybody. No one, anybody I knew to call, my wife, other drivers. No one had heard anything. So I park, and where I parked is where those two food trucks happened to be. They were the only activity I saw was those two food trucks, and a couple soldiers were coming. They knew they were there. They were getting lunch like I wanted to do. I walked over to the PX or the exchange. What was funny in a way, or macabre, or whatever you want to call it, it was like a scene from the Walking Dead. They were all closed, but the parking lots were full. They were in there locked in. I couldn't get in. Nobody can get out. And to the extent that no one knew, I still didn't know what was going on. I walked over to the food truck. That's where they told me there was an active shooter. They said shooters. And then I go walking back over to the exchange. I was going to walk to Burger King, which was the same way, locked in. People were locked in there. There were ex-military. There was two of them in their pickup trucks with families. They weren't active duty, but they were on base. They were asking me what was going on. So I'm telling them there's an active shooter, and they're trying to get off base, and they couldn't. But it was they were walking back over to the food trucks. Now I'm curious, how are we going to know when to leave? And that was about the time that those the officer pulled up. There was three of them that pulled up, but the first one pulled up and said that we couldn't be standing there no more. Now, that was almost an hour into it. He said that we had to get in our vehicles, that there was an active shooter. That's the first time I heard anyone say active shooter. That was actually part of the whole thing. It wasn't just a soldier. It was actually a policeman saying that. But I was asking him, I'm like, well, how am I going to know? And he was pointing to the horns. I guess they have these towers that are the alarms for that kind of thing, emergency notices. There was one right there. He said that would go off typically in those kind of scenarios. It never went off. We never got informed of what was going on. It was only that officer. When I was halfway back to my truck, he yelled back. He said, "Okay, it's clear. You guys can leave." And that was about an hour into it. And then I went back to the same gate. It all started, and they hadn't quite opened it up yet. But in about 5 minutes' time, they opened that up, and then I left.
So how would you describe the hour that you spent there, were you scared? Were you just confused? How are you now?
A little of both. When you're standing there, you really didn't know. At a slow pace, you kind of got informed, whether you're talking to other people who weren't actively involved, but kind of were hearing from whatever source they had. You didn't know where to go. If you should, you weren't one of the ones locked in the building. I don't live there. Maybe all the other people went home, but the whole base activity stopped. You didn't see one car anywhere, and we were about the only people milling around. Maybe we just got caught where we didn't have anywhere else to be. But you really didn't know what to look out for. Who was you still seen in the police activity change from military presence, the police there. Then I started seeing county, then sheriff, then city. It was Hinesville, Liberty County. I seen coroners. Their vehicles go by. Then it was a whole bunch of ambulances that went by periodically. But the only thing that changed was about an hour into it. All the activity was still pretty hustling, but the blue lights weren't on. Before, for almost an hour, everyone going by was pretty much in a hurry. It just died down, but you really didn't know what to do. And like I said, it was really reminiscent of 9/11 for a base that size to go that quiet. It was like there was no one living there.
Well, Ron Peavy, we're glad that you're okay. We can only imagine what that was like, all that uncertainty for you. We really appreciate you sharing your video, your pictures, and taking the time to talk to us.